First tonight, watching our universities descend into pro-terrorist radicalism leads many to believe that the United States has a serious problem with anti-Semitism. And while that is certainly part of the disgusting displays that we have been seeing in the last weeks and months, this behavior is actually being bred from communism. The current hatred for the Jews, the result of decades of Marxist breeding inside of American universities. The ideology's most effective incubator has been our colleges, after all, where our students are transformed into little anti-West, hate-filled cancer cells and then sent out into the world, taught to stand in defiance of anyone or anything that has been deemed an oppressor. By today's standard, oppressor means any people that are more prosperous than another. A great tweet from Elon Musk recently: the axiomatic error undermining much of Western civilization is weak makes right. If someone accepts, explicitly or implicitly, that the oppressed are always the good guys, then the natural conclusion is that the strong are the bad guys. And that's exactly what we have right now. Israel has a strong society, very strong culture, and a very strong military. So, apparently, by today's standards, they're the bad guys. The fact that Hamas, the Palestinian people, especially inside Gaza, have none of those qualities makes them the good guys, somehow absolves their hate, absolves Hamas's constant attacks on Israel, as well as the rape, the torture, mutilation of women and even babies that we saw on October 7th. Those inside Gaza are the protagonists, according to Western communists, and they are cheered on by them as such.
It's about to be every day.
Be glad, be grateful that I'm not just going out and murdering Zionists.
Once you understand the ideology behind all of this, it lets it make a lot more sense, right? And certainly tracks with new information revealing that George Soros is funding the chaos that we're seeing right now. The U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, a major purveyor of the extremism inside the United States, has taken in hundreds of thousands of dollars from Soros foundations in recent years and is paying the top coordinators of these protests that we're seeing thousands of dollars every single week. This is all being paid for. Could explain why the tents on these Ivy League campuses, a lot of them look very similar, as if they were bought at about the same time. These are not organic protests by and large. This is a coordinated effort by American communists to further destabilize this country, which is what they're good at. For the last 50 years, George Soros has been destabilizing the world, a toxic cancer that at 93 years old just keeps on surviving and destroying, filling the pockets of America's left-wing political class that enable him. With Soros, it is certainly true, the good die young and evil lives forever. The ideological culture of America's culture of Marxists, capture, I should say, of America's cultural Marxists, is the culmination of decades of work, though. It was not simple to get us here. It was an incredibly complex effort. It took a long time to do, and explained perfectly here by a former Soviet spy. Take a listen.
Psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students. Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism.
The soft heads. Talking about the young kids. Your kids are the biggest target. Injected non-stop with toxic propaganda, trans, godlessness, race baiting, equity nonsense. It's all a tactic. And when you fight back, they call you a fascist. So most, of course, stay quiet as we lose our country. From the Heritage Foundation, cloaking their goals under the pretense of social justice, They now seek to dismantle the foundations of the American Republic by rewriting history, reintroducing racism, creating privileged classes, and determining what can be said in public discourse, the military, and houses of worship. This is dead on. Unless Marxist thought is defeated again, today's cultural Marxists will achieve what the Soviet Union never could: the subjugation of the United States to a totalitarian, soul-destroying ideology. It's perfectly said. Just look at a few highlights from a list of 45 communist goals inside the United States, compiled by anti-communist author and former FBI agent Cleon Skuzin, a list created back in 1958, listing off: get control of the schools, transmission belts for socialism, current communist propaganda, etc. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs, organizations that are under communist attack. Infiltrate the press. Gain control of radio, TV, motion pictures. Discredit the American Constitution, call it inadequate. Discredit the American Founding Fathers. How many statues have we seen toppled in recent years? Infiltrate the unions, infiltrate big business, discredit the family as an institution, encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. All of that, and that was written 60, 70 years ago. We're seeing the fruits of this effort all over the place. You can see it happening in every section of our society. Take a listen to what today's Democrat leaders sound like.
President Biden and Vice President Harris are deeply committed to advancing equity.
The priorities of this administration: economic strength, safety, climate, equity, preparing for the future.
Giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place.
Advancing equity has to be everyone's job.
And they're too stupid to even know what they're talking about. It is everywhere. Even pint-sized Democrat economist Robert Reich tweeting out, dismantling systems of oppression requires constant and concerted action. Fully indoctrinated. A Marxist economist. Quite the oxymoron. Or maybe just a moron. As any economist should know, Marxism always fails every single time. The Marxists have certainly taken over a chunk of organized labor. Here's one from the Chicago Teachers Unions. The push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. It's everywhere. Take a listen to one of the organizers of the pro-Hamas protests we've seen at Columbia, seen in this next video answering to his university after posting a very violent message to the Jews on Instagram.
I don't fight to injure or for there to be a winner or loser. I fight to kill. See y'all in New York, January 2024.
So that's specifically what we're going to be discussing today. Do you see why that's problematic in any way?
No, there should not be Zionists anywhere. The meeting's a joke. They definitely were hoping that I was going to walk back the I fight to kill.
That's a Columbia student. Probably got in with a 2.8 GPA. For the last several years, we've watched our entire society bend over backwards to appease that, what you just saw. Thankfully, the chaos we've seen in response to October 7th does appear to be opening a lot of eyes in this moment. We've certainly seen a shift based on what we're seeing in our colleges. Americans appear to be awakening to the beast that we have created by coddling Marxism in this country for so many decades. Mike Baker was a CIA covert operations officer, and he joins me now. Sir, it's good to have you back on. We're seeing the effects of decades of indoctrination work in this country, aren't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm glad you showed that brief clip from Yuri Bezmenov, the former KGB officer.
Yeah.
Like, he was talking in 1984. That's when that interview was done, about the efforts to psychologically influence the youth. I mean, and he was very focused throughout that entire interview. It's clear what the KGB understood was these efforts have to be directed at the youth. That's how you make the big change, right? It's not influencing the older population to, vote one way or another in a particular election. They're talking about a seismic shift in the values of an entire society over a period of years. So it was very good that you showed that clip from Bezmenov.
Yeah. You saw in that clip, he talks about the soft minds of students penetrated with books and other information that tear down America, that tear down the ideas of success. There's a number of books that are required reading. I mean, a lot of these, you see Death of a Salesman, Grapes of Wrath. A lot of what we're pumping into our kids comes from a general idea that the system that we have is somehow unfair, that it is wrong. I mean, they're getting this, in high school, and you grow from there.
Right. No, it's well before high school at this point. Frankly, look, this idea, and I think you highlighted it well with particularly the Elon Musk comment, but this idea that if you're strong, right, if you're successful, then somehow you're oppressing someone, right, and the idea that the oppressors you're always bad, yeah, okay, fine, but that it doesn't flip around, and so the idea that somehow the all Palestinian civilians, as an example, are good. Look, a lot of them are. A lot of them are in a very difficult situation, but a lot of them also support Hamas. They voted Hamas in as their government, right? And so, but the campuses, universities, my wonderful daughter, she's older now, but when she was in university on the East Coast, she would talk to me about this all the time. It just wasn't worth her fighting back. She's a very pragmatic, I would call her a centrist, right? She sees good policies on the Democrats and also the Republicans. She's a very reasoned individual. But she always understood there was no upside to arguing in class, right, for a more conservative side. Yeah. And all her fellow students who maybe felt the same way did the same thing. They just kept their mouths shut, right, because they knew there was no upside. So it's very disheartening, but it has been, as you pointed out, it's been going on for years. And for the most part, most people just sit around and go, meh, it's happening. Now, I do disagree with you on one thing, Rob. You said I think America is waking up or awakening, and that, I don't know. Right? We're all like raccoons chasing a shiny tinfoil ball. So the campus protests will die down at a certain point because all the gormless, young people who have been, duped into being useful idiots will find something else to do. But I think we'll move on, right? I don't know that this will have any sort of important shift in the way that people view what's happening in America.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I do feel a shift happening right now, but it might just be, temporary to some extent. I mean, I see a lot of people that are waking up in one way or another to what we're seeing, but you're right. I mean, you could see this all remanifest, and who knows what happens in this next election. And it's anybody's guess. Mike Baker, we appreciate you coming on, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rob. Take care.
You too. All right, Shi Ban Fleet survived Mao's violent and bloody communist revolution in China, and she joins us again tonight. Thank you so much for coming back on. Do you see parallels between the United States in this moment and what your country went through?
Yes, it is the Cultural Revolution repeating. This is exactly what happened in the 60s during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Exactly the same thing, because Mao also used the youth to launch his revolution. Those are tens of millions of young people, and it took Mao 17 years to get them totally brainwashed. That started in 1949 when the CCP took over power. And so it was so easy, there was no critical thinking. They could not think critically at all. They could not think. The only thing Mao needed is give them a trigger word. That means join the revolution, overthrow those in power who were the political enemy of Mao, and they did it. They did it, and just like what's going on today, they were not able to think, no critical thinking, only need the trigger word. You summarized so well. The principle, the operating system is oppressor versus oppressed. The weak is the good one. The strong is the bad one. And the only thing you need to do is identify who's the weak, support the weak. And also, this is important, that communism is always big lie sprinkled with some truth. And so and also the revolution is irresistible because there's no critical thinking. A lot of the kids join in just because it was something to do.
Right.
And a lot of them had no idea about the real issue, but it doesn't matter because the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. Yeah. And anti-Semitism, yes, but the real goal is America, because America is the strongest, the most powerful nation on earth. Their goal is to destroy America.
Yeah. It's very obvious, and you see that. Yeah, we just asked Mike, and Mike actually said he doesn't believe that, and I've talked to a lot of people who believe this too, that we're just on a path. We're going to go down this road, come hell or high water, and there's really nothing that can stop us at this point. Do you think that this country is this far gone when we have youth as indoctrinated as they are at this point? I mean, it seems like we're way behind in this fight.
I know it's bad, but I do believe that more and more people waking up, and a lot of people fall for the BMM on 2020.
Yeah.
This time, I think it's not the case. A lot of people just could not agree with what's going on, and I think more and more people waking up. I have great hope.
I'm glad to hear that. She Van Fleet, thank you so much. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the latest in Trump's New